What is up, guys? It's that time again. I cry over spilt milk here, and here is my end of season for Formula One 2022 season reviews of all the 20 full-time drivers who drove in 2022. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. In 20th place, we have a non-mover, Nicholas Latifi, driving for Williams, finished 20th in the standings, with the best finish of 2022, 9th in Japan. As of recording this video, we don't know where he'll be next season in 2023. However, we'll watch his space and find out where he ends up. Now, as we all know, Latifi, or as his fans call him, Goat Tifi, will not be on the grid next season, as this is probably the last time I'll talk about him. Let, Letting him go is the right decision for Williams. Latifi's had 3 full seasons in the sport, and has not really shined at all in this time. In fact, being at the centre of controversy. Let's think back to the final race of 2021 and also of memes and, Goat Teeth is what people call him. It took him until the 10th race in Silverstone in Great Britain to overtake Nico Hulkenberg in the standings. Just remember, Nico Hulkenberg only had 2 races, so Nico Hulkenberg achieved more in 2 races than Latifi achieved in 10, so that's quite embarrassing. And until the 18th race at Suzuka to overtake Nick De Vries, meaning all 20 regular drivers did finish in the top 20 in the standings. But this is quite embarrassing that Hulkenberg and De Vries, I'll talk more about these two later, did more than what Latifi did in pretty much in the whole season. It does make you think how much more a different driver would get out the Williams. Latifi got his better results out of rain affected races. Think of Hungary and Belgium last year. And unfortunately, in most F1 races, it does not rain, and he needed these results more often. But credit to Latifi, you can't just turn up in F1 and race. You have to meet a prerequisite of super license points to get into F1. His most achievement before coming into F1 was finishing second place in the 2019 F2 Championship. I mean, there's like other drivers like Kota that AlphaTauri wanted to sign, and they couldn't sign him because he can get a permit, a super license, even though we all know Kota's a good driver. But there we go. That's how it goes. I just hope his replacement, Logan Sargent, is not Latifi Mark II. However, swapping Latifi for Sargent is a very low risk move. I do hope Latifi's next career move is more successful, and I do wish him the best of luck, although I don't think we'll see Latifi on the F1 grid as a driver again. Coming up next, I'm in 19th place, and my joint highest faller. It's Mick Schumacher, who drove for Haas. He finished 16th in the standings. His best finish all season was at sixth place in Austria, and in 2023 he'll probably be Mercedes' third driver, although this is not confirmed as of yet. Other than Ricardo, Schumacher has been the most scrutineered driver in 2022, and fears that he'll be out of a driver 2023 were predicted early on. There are 3 factors that secured Schumacher's demise. One, too much crashing, costing the team that spends the least in 2022 in F1 even more money, and this money could have been used to improve the car, maybe. Um, Point two, he only had 3 good weekends in 2022 from Canada to Austria. I thought Schumacher finally found his mojo, something to make it click. And for the second half of the season, we will see what he was able to find and much, improvement, and at least be on level terms with Magnussen. Unfortunately, this turned out to be a false dawn, and normal Schumacher service resumed from France onwards. Perhaps the cherry on the top was the Haas bookending the sprint grid in Brazil. Haas teammate Magnussen got on pole with Schumacher starting last. I mean, that says, I don't know, it pretty much says it all, doesn't it? That weekend, Schumacher should have at least been in the top 10, shootout, or at least out of Q1. I know you can compare Schumacher to other number 2 drivers in the same era like Tsunoda, Guan Yu Zhou, and point wise, he's outscored both, but the Alfa Romeo and Alfa Tauri were less reliable and had more mechanical retirements. Tsunoda and Schumacher finished level on points, but Schumacher's sixth at Austria kept him ahead of Tsunoda. Tsunoda's best finished 7th at Imola, his best result. But Sonoda was more consistent and had more points finishes. I think he scored 4 point finishes compared to Schumacher's two. I'm sure if Sonoda had no retirements, he would have got some more points to finish ahead of Schumacher. And the third point against Schumacher, shall we say, the baggage that comes with Schumacher. The name, uh, being the son of the all-time great with an outspoken uncle. In Ralph Schumacher, his uncle, and Formula One race winner, and all the expectation that he will do well. All in all, Schumacher has cost the team so much money with little reward compared to Magnussen, Sonoda, and Zhou, just name a few. And there was little sign for improvement from the French Grand Prix onwards, which is why Hulkenberg got the nod over Schumacher. Hulkenberg has been a super sub for the past few seasons and has done well for his sporadic drives and has been very unlucky, sorry, to be out for full time drive in 2020. But for 2020, if you had to choose between Ocon, Ricardo, and Hulkenberg, I know, what you would pick. This will be technically Hulkenberg's third full time spell out of F1 after spending one season at Williams in 2010, sitting out 2011, and then pretty much sitting out 2020 to 2022. Why did Haas pick Hulkenberg? Hulkenberg is a very similar driver to Magnussen, both dependable points finishes, and Hulkenberg looks set to increase his record of F1 starts with no podiums in the Haas, unfortunately. For Haas, regular points finishes in the low top 10 is the best that the team can hope for, and this is where they are right now. So for me, Haas and Hulk are a good match. Schumacher need a team who will give him time, someone like Williams, and perhaps even AlphaTauri if Red Bull need a stopgap if there's no one to promote from F2. I hope Schumacher does return. The guy who replaced him proves you can not be a Formula One superstar and have a few seasons out and still come back. And I hope we do have Schumacher back. The final word is that at the end, Haas and Schumacher were just not right for each other, and it was the right decision all round for Schumacher to go. Schumacher still has a chance as a Mercedes third driver if he does go for that. Maybe he'll be loaned out to a team if required, like Hulkenberg was. For me, Hulkenberg should have replaced Grosjean at Haas in 2019 or 2020, but I'm glad this has now finally happened. I think Hulkenberg will do well at Haas. Next up, in 18th place, he's moved up one, amazingly. My old favourite, Lance Stroll, the Aston Martin driver who finished 15th in the standings this season. The best finish was his sixth place in Singapore this season. And of course, he'll be at Aston Martin next season as well. And pretty much any other season after that as well, as long as the Strolls are still in the sport and still interested. It's back to the Lance of old in 2022 after beating his teammate Vettel in the points last season in 2021 and grabbing pole in Turkey in 2020. The reason why I put him so low is that the avoidable incidents in the braking zone, where Lance is just into other drivers in the braking zone, you can't do that. Like he drifted into Latifi at Imola and Alonso in Austin. You just can't do that. That is dangerous, and it's pretty much and as such, pretty much every other driver doesn't do that. Lance is a prime candidate for 20th place in my rankings next season, with no Latifi, and if Sargent does well, the sooner the trolls get bored of Formula One, the better. As long as Daddy's pulling the strings, he'll be in the sport. It'll be his sixth season in 2023. Overall, a mediocre season in 2022. As I said before, the best finish in Singapore after proving his worth in 2020 in Turkey and a duo of third places. And then after impressively outscoring Vettel in 2021. Outscoring Vettel in the same machinery is impressive. In 17th place, got the non-mover, Daniel Ricciardo, driving for McLaren last season, finished 11th in the standings, best finish of 5th in Singapore. And in 2023, he'll be the Red Bull third driver. A very disappointing 2022 for Ricciardo, where too regularly I see Ricciardo at the back of the field when he should be competing for the best of the rest with teammate Norris and the rival Alpines. Apart from the win at Monza in 2021, which was a McLaren 1-2 and one Norris could have easily won, Daniel and McLaren just have not gelled. like Schumacher and Haas, it does happen sometimes, and it is unfortunately neither Schumacher or Ricardo had a backup to keep them on the grid for 2023. I hope we see Ricardo back, and now as Red Bull's third driver, he can have a chance to rediscover that form that demanded a hefty sum from Renault to prize him away from Red Bull. Well, from his time at Renault and after McLaren paid Ricardo out for not being able to honour the final season in his contract for 2023, at least Ricardo's pockets are nicely lined. Why don't he buy himself a seat at a top team? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he'll get a chance to Red Bull after the Verstappen Perez rift in Brazil. This season, some cynics believe Red Bull signed Ricardo to ensure Perez behaved himself and is a ready replacement if there is a similar fallout in 2023, like an insurance policy, especially as Ferrari and a resurgent Mercedes will be fighting for the championship next season. Again, like with Haas and Schumacher, I think it was a right decision all round for the Ricardo McLaren partnership to end before it's run its course. And just the same, there was nowhere for the driver to go. McLaren needs a second driver to complement Norris and ensure McLaren secures fourth place in the constructors, with a view to look up and break up into the top three and not to worry about where the Alpine and other teams are behind. At least Ricardo can smile that it is a fellow Aussie that ousted him from McLaren, and we'll see if McLaren poaching Piastri and turning the team upside down was worth the reward for doing so. Let's hope we get the Red Bull Ricardo back on the grid soon. It'd be interesting to see if he can get a seat for 2024. There are a lot of drivers coming back recently after a year or two on the sidelines, like Kvyat, Ocon, Albon, and Magnussen, to name just a few. So hopefully Ricardo will get a reprieve. But one thing's for sure, Ricardo will have to take a pay cut for his next team. Um, Next up in 16th place, up 2 places in my rankings, Yuki Tsunoda, the AlphaTauri driver who finished 17th this season. His best result this season was 7th at Emilia Romagna, and as we know, he'll be at AlphaTauri next season. Yuki will get a third season at AlphaTauri next season, more by default, I feel, as Alpha struggled to find a replacement for Gasly. So if they struggle to find a replacement for Gasly, they'll probably would find it even, they'll struggle to find a replacement for Tsunoda as well. Red Bull feel none of their F2 drivers are ready for F1 yet. Yuki's Tsunoda's lowlights have included clashing with Gasly at Silverstone, breaking the golden rule of Formula One. You do not take out your teammate, and binning it after a pit stop in Canada. Yuki had a worse second season compared to his debut season. He scored 20 less points this time around. But surprisingly, AlphaTauri finished ninth in the constructors, and Yuki was closer to Gasly in the standings in 2022 than he was in 2021. Whether Yuki has improved or Gasly just had a poor season is up for debate, but it is clear that 2022 AlphaTauri was a worse car than the 2021 AlphaTauri, and Haas just edged AlphaTauri for eighth place. Let's remember that in 2021, Alpine said if it wasn't for Tsunoda, AlphaTauri would have finished fifth in 2021. It seems AlphaTauri nosedived in 2022, and as mentioned before, maybe Gasly could not carry the team this season as the car was that bad. Perhaps a good way to rate Yuki, and for me to big up Yuki, as far as so far have painted a pretty bad picture for him. I like Yuki as a character, is to compare him to Schumacher, as both have scored the same number of points, but Yuki has not destroyed as many chassis. I assume that's the plural of chassis, but chassis, like as in, dice and die. Die is a plural of dice. I've just made that up. I don't know. But anyway, Schumacher's destroyed a few chassis or chassis or, a lot of cars. The question is if that, sorry, the question is that if Yuki was at Haas, would he have been kept on? I think Yuki's case to be kept on would be stronger than Schumacher's. The main move ahead of arrival, sorry, uh, I think Yuki's case will be stronger than Schumacher's. The main for Haas is that they do not spend up to the budget cap and are well within. So any damage costs take away finance for the research or creating new parts that could help a Haas move ahead of a rival team. And another consideration is that Red Bull can be cutthroat when they have an abundance of drivers on their books. But fortunately for Yuki, there is a drought in the Red Bull program at the moment. So that is why Yuki has the seat more by default. as there's no one to replace him rather than on merit necessarily. If Yuki was at Haas, keeping the car one pace would be a huge plus, which Yuki has done this season. And Yuki has 4 points finishes compared to the 2 points finishes scored by Schumacher. Yuki has been more consistent and informed compared to Schumacher, creating a better average. For Yuki, the goal for 2023, after 2 years of being expected to be number two to Gasly, is that Tsunoda will be the team's number one in the team for the first time. And he must beat the incoming Nick De Vries, otherwise Yuki's time at AlphaTauri and F1 as a whole may be over with no chance of a return. AlphaTauri may decide to cut the losses and take a chance on one of their F2 drivers. Every season is a crucial season for every Formula One driver, but 2023 will be a flashpoint in Yuki's career. Next up in fifth, so we had the top 16. So the bottom half of the 20 to 16, we've had Latifi at 20, Mick Schumacher at 19, Lance Stroll at 18, Daniel Ricciardo at 17th, and Yuki Tsunoda at 16th. So let's move on to that's the quarter of the grid done. Let's move on to the other three quarters. In 15th place, down 2 positions, is Pierre Gasly. He finished 14th this season. His best 2022 result was 5th in Azerbaijan. And in 2023, he'd been moving to Alpine. It was a toss-up between Zhou and Gasly for this place. Zhou had a passable and unspectacular debut season, and Gasly has perhaps had his worst season in F1. And the move to Alpine came at exactly the right time, with Alpine hoping they get the post-Red Bull Gasly that was to the end of 2021. This is the move myself and Gasly have been waiting for years for. I have said in multiple previous videos, Gasly needs to join at least a team of the same caliber to McLaren or Alpine to progress and save his career after a few seasons of rebuilding at AlphaTauri. After I feel the Red Bull drive coming a season or two too early. But you have to take these chances in Formula One when they come knocking. You can't say you're not ready, otherwise another driver gets a chance, and you may have squandered that chance, and that may never open up for you again in your career. Very similar to Perez. Just wasn't ready for the McLaren drive so early in his career. After spending a few seasons at Force India and subsequent rebranding of that team, he is now doing a brilliant job at Red Bull, ending 2022 with a few wins to his name and third in the championship. We all know Perez has had the potential to be at the sharp end. Just the McLaren drive was just too soon. Anyway, enough of Perez. We'll talk about him later, and let's get back to Gasly. It's very much for debate whether 2022 was an off-season for Gasly or if it was the car that let him down. Yuki Tsunoda also had a worse season points-wise, at least in 2022 compared to 2021. So I think it is more the car letting Gasly down rather than Gasly not being able to carry the team. It could be that both drivers just not performing and maybe just getting complacent. There was no wait. There was no waiting in the Red Bull program for an F1 drive, but I'm sure that is not the case. If you're a driver, you want to finish as high as you can. It'll be an exciting prospect at Alpine next season. Two French drivers wanting to be the top Frenchman in a French car. I just hope they battle hard, and the other teams are not battle hard against the other teams and not each other. No civil wars. Gasly eager for Red Bull seat and Ocon wanting to end up at Mercedes. I think it'll be a close battle. That's exciting that we can probably compare both drivers and find out who is better of the two. Both are former race winners, albeit not necessarily on merit, but it does show if there's a chance of victory, both can rise up to the occasion and ensure they hold the advantage and secure the win. Up next in 14th place, up one, Zhou Guanyu, the Alfa Romeo driver, finished 18th in the standings. The best finish in 2022 was 8th at Canada, and in 2023 he'll stay at Alfa Romeo. Zhou had a solid but unspectacular debut season, and I'm worried he'll become another Giovinazzi, Antonio Giovinazzi that is, who was a good talented driver, but just cannot grab an outstanding result on the days where Alfa Romeo's car suits the circuit better than its rivals. Let's remember in the background the team will be the Audi team in 2026. I'm sure Zhou will be wanting to be an incumbent until then and stay a great cause to be kept on. And there's also the internal talent of Théo Pourchaire, who is itching to get on the grid. Zhou has been had an unlucky debut season with reliability issues, as well as being taken out at Silverstone after an excellent qualifying session totaling uh, 5 retirements this season. Teammate Bottas has also registered 5 retirements in 2022, as did Alonso, but Sainz got the most with 6 retirements. For example, in Silverstone, I'm sure Zhou would have scored a few points, and with all these points missed by retirement, he could have perhaps been on par with Schumacher, Tsunoda, and Stroll. There's not much more for me to say about Zhou. He just needs a few more moments of magic and memorable drives, and then he'll be. And I might have more to say about him. The trouble with the Sauber Alfa Romeo is that the team gets off to a fantastic start and then just slips down the order as the season progresses. It's the same with Bottas. Bottas finished more often than not in the points before the summer break, and then Bottas just scored 2 more points finishes after the summer break. Joe scored on his debut, and we all sat up thinking that we can count Alfa Romeo in the battle for fifth with McLaren and Alpine, with Joe only going to get better as the season progressed. Then we had the usual Alfa Romeo post summer slump, and Alfa Romeo ended up finishing tied with Aston Martin on points, but Bottas getting that fifth in Imola, pointing Alfa ahead of Aston on countback, despite Aston getting 3 6th places and Alfa only getting 2 6th places, and Aston Martin, having more consistency. I guess that at Alpha, they say make hay when the sun is shining at the beginning of the season. And as many pundits say, if you stand still in Formula One, you fall behind, as other teams improve with upgrades. Aston has had a poor start to the season, but improved as the season went on and got to Alpha's level by the end of the season. And it all starts again next season from a clean slate. Zhou needs to build on this season, as there was one Teo Porcher waiting in the wings, and who might start looking elsewhere, like what Piastri did if he doesn't get the drive soon. In 13th place, up 1 position, Alex Albon in the Williams, who finished 19th in the standings. His best finish in 2022 was the 9th at Miami, and in 2023 he'd be kept on at Williams. Alexander Albon showed us last season why he deserves to be on the F1 grid, channeling friend George Russell and essentially picking up the baton left by Russell by taking the Williams to place it shouldn't be at all in qualifying and in races. Like in the races, he finished ninth in Miami, and he also picked up a duo of temps in Australia and Belgium. All these on merit, as no more than 3 cars retired from each of these races, and the races were in dry conditions, so that was truly on merit. Not rain or high attrition. That's well worked for. If Williams had De Vries all season, I would expect Williams to at least challenge for eighth in the constructors, and at least not be far off eighth position. Albon has Logan Sargent for company next season. All Albon has to do is keep Sargent in the shade, keep himself relevant with a few points finishes, and I am sure that other teams will consider Albon if they get any vacancies. Albon was in contention for the Alpine seat in 2023, for example, when Alonso walked away. I can see Albon just growing with Williams, and after what Russell showed us in 2022, after a few seasons with Williams, Albon will be hoping lightning strikes twice after signing a multi-year deal to stay at Williams, a win all round for everyone. Albon now has time to show why he deserves an F1 seat, and Williams gets a driver who will be there to score points when the Williams package and the circuit really talk to each other, like what happened in Miami, Australia, Belgium, and Italy. I say Italy because that's where De Vries scored points. There in his one outing at Monza, and Monza is a high street circuit like the other three. At minimum, Albon just needs to repeat 2022 and 2023. That will do his career no harm while he waits for a spot higher at the grid to open up. In 12th place, a non-mover, Sebastian Vettel, the Aston Martin driver who finished 12th in the standings. Best finish in 2022 was a 6th for Azerbaijan and Japan, and in 2023 he'll be retiring. So 12th in my ratings and 12th in the standings. He just can't, just been there the whole time. Yeah, Dankeschön, Sebastian. I apologise for my poor German. For your exciting career in F1, from the fresh-faced and groomed BMW reserve driver who hit the ground running to a winner for Toro Rosso with backmarker Minardi DNA, to a dominating quadruple champion with Red Bull, to not quite being Michael Schumacher Mark II for Ferrari, to a grizzled, bearded, battle-worn warrior combining his experience with Lance Stroll's cash to have a final roll of the dice with Aston Martin to see if they could provide a competitive package for a final few campaigns to have a stab at regaining his championship crown. I'm actually sad to see Vettel go. He has really grown up at Aston, and I agree there are bigger things out there in the world that demands Vettel's attention and his energy. It's a shame it wasn't made public at the time or didn't get much recognition, but Vettel did very much care for his fellow pedalers. Drivers have said that they touched them when Vettel took time out to phone them just to see if they were okay and chat with them for maybe an hour or two. Anyway, let's talk about Vettel in 2022, the here and now. It was somewhat fairly average season for Vettel, consistently in the points, and managing to spare his blushes by comfortably beating Stroll this season. In fact, Vettel scored the same amount of points as Ricciardo did, but Ricciardo managed to get the height of the fifth in Singapore, which gave the 11th place to Ricciardo. Vettel very much carried Aston to seventh in the standings on his own this season, even though at the season's beginning it was clearly the ninth best car. So he has had a good season for Aston. He'll be disappointed not to get the final taste of champagne for the podium this season, or finish in the top ten in the rate in the standings. So next up, we are now moving into 11th place next. Banging on the door of the top 10. So who will be 11th place? For me, it's a toss-up between Bottas and Magnussen. Who will I pick for 11th place? And who just scraped into my top 10 and score a point? Have they swapped positions? And who will get the first points paying position this season for this video? So 11th place, dun 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 dun. They have swapped places. Valtteri Bottas is down one in the Alfa Romeo, finishing 10th in the standings. His best finish is fifth at Emilia Romagna, and in 2023 he will remain at Alfa Romeo. Valtteri has had a solid season with Alfa Romeo, relishing being a team leader for the first time in such a long time. A fairly quiet and uneventful season for Bottas, just quietly getting the job done under the radar, scoring points. Nothing really to say about this season. Like Magnussen, just quietly getting the job done for his team, picking up points as he went. Just unlucky with a joint number, higher joint uh, or quite a few retirements with 5 retirements. As I mentioned before, the same number as his teammate and one less than Sainz. Um, he finished 32 points behind Alonso in ninth. I think if Bottas finished those races, I don't think it would be enough to overtake Alonso, as Alonso had 5 retirements as well. So both Alfa Romeo and Alpine need to improve their reliability for their drivers for 2023. So just to recap, from 15 to 11, in 15th place we had Pierre Gasly. In 14th place we had Zhou Guanyu. In 13th place Alexander Albon. In 12th place Sebastian Vettel. And in 11th place, we had Valtteri Bottas. We all know who's going to be number 10. I've already said it. So let's get into it. So into the top 10 and scoring 1 point. Kevin Magnussen, who's up one. He finished 13th in the standings. His best finish, the fifth in the first race in Bahrain. And in 2023, he'll be kept on at Haas. I put Magnussen ahead of Bottas, as Magnussen scored an impressive pole position at Brazil and was the only driver outside the top three teams to grab a pole position, in addition to having much less time to prepare for the season, being a last-minute replacement for Mazepin. Magnussen only went and finished fifth in the first race and was the best of the rest in Bahrain. However, much like Magnussen's first debut, where he finished second for McLaren, this proved to be a second false dawn, turning out to be an average season for Magnussen, apart from grabbing the pole at Brazil. I predicted Bottas, Magnussen, and the Alpines would be close together at the beginning of the season. Bottas and the Alpine drivers finished next to each other in the standings, so I'm pleased I got that predicted part right. And Magnussen just fell to the wayside after a promising start. If Magnussen didn't get the pole or have an excellent first race, or to put Magnussen down the rankings, I do believe Magnussen deserves to be on the 2023 grid, and he'll have an exciting challenger in Nico Hulkenberg for a teammate next season. Like at Alpine, both Haas drivers will want to be the top dog and be the one kept on if Haas want to sign a driver or progress up the grid if a seat at a higher ranked team opens up. One tip for Magnussen: just stay away from Hamilton next season. Um, in ninth place, we have a non-mover, Fernando Alonso, who also finished ninth in the standings. He got a trio of fifths at Great Britain, Belgium, and Brazil as his best result in 2022. And as we know, in 2023, he'll be driving for Aston Martin. Non-mover again for Alonso. Alonso has been the driver I've rated ninth all season. At least I got that right. He finished ninth in the standings, and he's finished ninth here as well. So lots of nines, 999. Not an emergency though. Maybe I'll give an extra point for consistency, perhaps so he can get to a perfect 10 maybe. You can't put Alonso down, and again, the Alpines were very evenly matched this season. However, it was Ocon who finished top Alpine in 2022, with Alonso being top Alpine in 2021. It is a shame we won't get the best of three, to sort it out who is the best out of three, as Alonso moved to Aston Martin. A strange decision, moving to a lower ranked team. Maybe Alonso sees potential like Hamilton did when he moved to Mercedes and made us look all silly next season with egg on our faces. Or maybe Lawrence Stroll got the checkbook out and or the wily old Alonso is grabbing an opportunity where he can. It seems Alonso was keeping the seat warm for Piastri until Piastri was ready for the Alpine drive. Alonso took matters into his own hands and created his destiny. The day when Piastri was ready, maybe there'll be nowhere for Alonso to slip into. However, if Alonso knew Piastri would end up at McLaren, he would he stay at Alpine? I guess the hype and the Alpine master plan of loading Piastri out and then promoting him when he was ready was an open secret. Alonso had the last laugh, replacing Vettel at Aston Martin after Vettel replaced Alonso at Ferrari. Back to 2022, and Alonso was let down for liability, the joint second highest numbers of 5 retirements, with Ocon only having 2 retirements. I'm sure Alonso may have been Ocon again if he finished a few more races. After the Alpine Civil War in Brazil, I bet Alonso, Ocon, and Alpine are all glad that now any issue between Ocon and Alonso will no longer be an issue, especially after Alonso and Ocon did huge favours for each other in 2021. It was a heartwarming story seeing them, they're both hugging each other after Hungary. I think Ocon helped Alonso at Qatar. It was very much a loving story. It's a shame that it's ended like this. Um, the split came at the right time, but can Alpine hold on to fourth place going into 2023? Um, in eighth place, there's nowhere else really to put him. Either. It's another non-mover, Esteban Ocon, who also finished eighth in the standings. Finished fourth in Japan as his best result. 2023 will be at Alpine. Once again, Ocon ending up as top Alpine in 2022. But if Alonso had a more reliable car, it could have easily been 2-0 to Alonso for both 2021 and 2022. Neither Alpine scored a podium this season, after both Alpines visit the podium at least once in 2021. So both drivers in the team will be disappointed with that, but Alpine will be pleased to edge out McLaren for fourth in the championship, having 2 drivers that regularly can score points, unlike McLaren, who had Norris carrying them. And if McLaren had 2 Norrises driving, I don't think Alpine would have got fourth, as Norris outscored Ocon by 30 points. Back to Ocon himself, and he has had a very solid season, but will be disappointed to not have scored over 100 points or not visited the podium this season. It is now time for Ocon to deal with another midfield warrior next season in the form of Gasly. I reckon it'll be closer between the two. Maybe Ocon will win in 2023 while Gasly finds his feet at Alpine. Well, by win I mean the Ocon Gasly battle. The Ocon will draw first blood and finish higher than Gasly. This is certainly an exciting driver lineup of midfield warriors. In seventh place, I've put Sir Lewis Hamilton, who's down 2. He finished sixth in the standings. He got 5 second places in France, Hungary, the USA, Mexico, and Brazil. In 2023, we will remain at Mercedes. Lewis will be very disappointed with this season, not just this being his only win this season since he's been in F1, but George Russell coming into the team, beating him, and grabbing a pole position and a race win while he was at it. 5 second places will not make up for not getting a win for Lewis. In the last few races of 2022, I believe Mercedes now have a car that can challenge for the championships with Ferrari and Red Bull. And Lewis will be eager to assert himself as the Mercedes as a driver that Mercedes should back and concentrate on for the future. I do feel for Hamilton after seeing him bouncing along in Azerbaijan, but I don't think the FIA should have changed the regulations to accommodate Mercedes. Red Bull, Ferrari, and other teams managed to create a car that didn't bounce as much as the Mercedes did. So Mercedes should have perhaps changed their car to more like the competitors, so it doesn't bounce as much. I expect a comeback from Hamilton in 2023 after Mercedes caught up to their title rivals. In sixth place, and the joint highest faller, down three, Sergio Perez, who finished third in the standings. He got two wins, but at Monaco and Singapore. And at 2023, he'll be staying at Red Bull. It turns out Perez is a master of street circuits with wins at Monaco and Singapore, but he can also do well at normal circuits with second places at Great Britain, Belgium, Spain, and Japan, among other top results. I have put Perez this low down in my rankings, as he had the best car pretty much all season and was only able to finish third in the standings, although Leclerc edged Perez. But if years come with stats, it'll show Verstappen champion, Leclerc in second, with Perez in third, and no mention of how close Leclerc and Perez were. However, Perez did the job he's meant to do. That's helping Verstappen win the championship, giving up a possible win at Spain as one example. Some cynics believe Red Bull have signed Daniel Ricciardo as an insurance policy. If Perez and Verstappen fall out again like they did in Brazil, maybe Perez would have finished second in the championship if Verstappen did step aside. However, if Perez and Leclerc did finish level on points, Leclerc had one more win compared to Perez, so Leclerc would still finish second on count back. Perez had a good season grabbing those two wins and finished second to Verstappen on 4 occasions, meaning their rivals scored less points as Red Bull took the maximum number of points, with Perez getting the bonus point for fastest lap in Spain and Azerbaijan, Verstappen getting the fastest lap in Emilia-Romagna and Belgium, meaning Red Bull had 4 maximum points finishes at these 4 races this season, while Ferrari and Mercedes only got one apiece. At Bahrain and Brazil respectively, and then this is all ignoring sprint races. Perez needs to up his game in 2023, as Ferrari and Mercedes should have the car to challenge Red Bull next season to protect Verstappen. And I think Perez has blown his chance of finishing runner-up in the drivers' title. So let's go back and review 6 to 10 in 10th place. We have Kevin Magnussen in 9th place, Fernando Alonso. In 8th place, Esteban Ocon. In 7th place, Lewis Hamilton. And in 6th place, as I just said, Sergio Perez. Moving into the top 5 now, in 5th place, it'll be Charles Leclerc. He finished second in the standing, he's up one compared to my last video. He's got 3 wins in Bahrain, Australia, and Austria. And in 2023, he'll be staying at Ferrari. You're probably thinking, why is Leclerc so low and even behind Sainz? It's because Leclerc should have been closest to Verstappen throughout the season. Although this isn't all his fault, the Ferrari tactics have been questionable all season, especially in Monaco and Hungary, in particular with tyre choices. Leclerc also threw away wins at Emilia-Romagna and France. So Leclerc and Ferrari need to get their head in the game for 2023. Leclerc finished 144 points behind Verstappen. That's the equivalent of about 6 race wins. Well, Verstappen did get 12 more wins than Leclerc throughout the season. In addition, Leclerc have had half the number of retirements Sainz had. Sainz finished 62 points behind Leclerc. Imagine if Sainz scored on average 10 points for those 6 retirements. It'll be a lot closer, may even overtake Leclerc. However, Leclerc did retire from 3 of his races, so you got to imagine that if he got on average 10 points too for those 3 races that Leclerc didn't finish, or perhaps more for in Leclerc's case, who would have maintained his position. Also, Leclerc scored 9 poles, while Verstappen got 7, and Verstappen got 5 times as many wins compared to Leclerc. This means stats-wise, Leclerc only converted a third of his poles to wins, while Verstappen more than doubled his win total compared to his pole total. This means that Ferrari and Leclerc were quicker than Verstappen in his Red Bull. However, Leclerc did not convert his advantage, while Verstappen won races by not starting on pole. Kind of embarrassing for Leclerc, really. As mentioned before, Leclerc and Ferrari need to get their act together and fast in time for 2023. They need to use their faster car and beat Verstappen and everyone else more often. In fourth place, it's a non-mover. It's Carlos. I feel like a bit of a chart doing the music chart here. So in fourth place, non-mover Carlos Sainz. He finished fifth in the championship with that win in Great Britain. And in 2023, he'll be at Ferrari. Another driver who's maintained their ranking throughout the season. Carlos has had a breakthrough year this year, grabbing his first pole positions and his first F1 win in 2022. Sainz converting his pole to a win in Great Britain, but scoring the same conversion rate as Leclerc did, as both Ferrari drivers only converted a third of their pole positions. Sainz is the unluckiest driver in 2022, with the most retirements at 6. Maybe he would have got fourth in the standings if he finished those races. Let's not also forget Sainz beat Leclerc in 2021, and Sainz did finish ahead of Leclerc in the middle part of the season from Monaco to Belgium. So Sainz can beat Leclerc. Sainz will be demanding more from Ferrari in reliability of the car and better team tactics compared to Leclerc. Sainz hasn't really put a foot wrong all season. Again, another reason why Sainz is ahead of Leclerc. Sainz has been wanting to build on 2022 in 2023 and be the one that Ferrari does back for the future. So we're now moving into the top 3 time. It's now pretty obvious who will be number 1. So who will be just stepping onto the podium between Russell and Norris? Da 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 da. Bit of a drum roll. In third place, up 4, and my highest climber, it's Lando Norris, who finished 7th in the championship, best of the rest. His best finish was the third in Emilia Romagna, and in 2023 he'll be clapped at McLaren. Let's hope Norris gets some help from Piastri in 2023 in helping McLaren secure 4th place, or maybe even higher in the championship next season. Another solid season from Norris, essentially carrying McLaren all season, finishing best of the rest outside the top 3 teams for a second consecutive year. And as mentioned before, the only driver outside the top 3 team to score over 100 points, and also a podium all season. Also, although some may argue Leclerc did gift Norris by going off circuit in Emilia Romagna, but you have to take your chances to convert the advantage and keep Leclerc, Russell, and co all behind you at bay, for example. Exactly what Norris did. Another pretty much faultless season from Norris, finishing races mostly in 6th or 7th, or in the best of the rest spot. Can Norris finish 7th in the standings for a third consecutive season, or even try and break into the top 6? Who knows? So we now move on to the top 2. I won't a big up because we all know who's going to be winner. So in second place, we have a non-mover, George Russell, who finished 4th in the championship. He got that win in Brazil, and in 2023, he'll be at Mercedes. Wow, a stonking first season at Mercedes, coming into Hamilton's backyard and comprehensively beating him by 35 points, which is why Russell is second in this list and not Norris. Only world champions can beat Hamilton in the same machinery, which means Russell most certainly will become a world champion sometime in his career. For me, it's a matter of when rather than if. He can certainly do it. He has scored a pole position and a race win all on merit this season. You know, no rain or attrition or anything like that. It does make you wonder if Mercedes were wasting Russell at Williams. They certainly were, and Hamilton's fear of being beaten by Russell were well founded. Knowing Hamilton did all he could to keep Bottas on for as long as possible. I won't beat around the bush. We all know he's going to be at number 1. Non-mover, Max Verstappen, champion, finished first in the standings. 15 wins all season. Let's rattle them off. Hopefully, I've got 15 here. I've got wins at Saudi Arabia, Emilia Romagna, Miami, Spain, Azerbaijan, Canada, France, Hungary, Belgium, Netherlands, Italy, Japan, USA, Mexico, and the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi. What more do I need to say? A very dominating season for Verstappen once reliability issues were sorted. There was no stopping Verstappen, not even if his team asked him in Brazil, like they did in Brazil. He can start off in 16th place and win, spin in the middle of the race like he did in Hungary and still win. Can Hamilton or Leclerc stop the Sky in 2023? I do feel letting Perez through for minor points in Brazil was a small ask and of little consequence to Verstappen. It's not like he was asked to consider a race win like Perez was asked to do in Spain. But as David Coulthard said, remember, Perez was with no future in F1 until Red Bull picked him up to be Verstappen's wingman, and he has done that admirably for 2 seasons they've been together. But you've got to be ruthless to be a world champion, like Verstappen is. But still, it's just a little kickback to move aside for minor points for Brazil for Verstappen. Now let's see if Verstappen will regret that decision in this coming season if Perez refuses to move over. So that was my top 20. Just let's recap the top five. So in fifth place, we had Charles Leclerc. In fourth place, Carlos Sainz. In third place, Lando Norris. Second place, George Russell. And in first place, Max Verstappen. Do you agree with my top 20? Who would be your top 20? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a chat and let me know what you think. So that was another 2022 season. That was quite enjoyable, and I'm glad to see. I will notice this season the fields are much closer together. Every driver scored points. Every full-time driver scored points anyway. So um, the field's a lot closer together, and I think the new regulations work. So let's see what 2023 brings, see who's improved, who's worked hard over the winter. And yeah, hopefully I'll be back in 2023 soon with my 2023 season's predictions. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.